I've played a lot of D&D, somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 hours of it in the last 5 years, about a third of that hosting the game myself for my friends. So I've always had this confidence that I knew basically everything I needed to know about running tabletop RPGs. Until, of course, I found reasons to start studying other games at the top of the year. Some of you might relate to these reasons. If you're like me, a tabletop player who's only played D&D and, unless convinced otherwise, will only ever play D&D, this video is for you. These are the top 3 things, very basic things, that I learned when I stopped playing Dungeons & Dragons. All in just 6 minutes. Well, technically 7, since this minute right here is an ad. Thanks, by the way, to Barrowbound for sponsoring this episode. More about them later. Anyway, truth number 1. There are other games. Yes, I know, of course there are others out there. I mean, look at all these games you could play instead. There's the horror one, the heist one, the not D&D one, and that one game that only you and your friends know about that you insist is amazing. But there's more than that. Hundreds more. Thousands more. 30 seconds on the itch.io physical games page will introduce you to a world of tabletop RPGs completely separate from the D&D ecosystem, covering both the wide breadth of every genre and the minutiae of every wacky whimsy you could come up with. The truth is that new tabletop RPGs are published every single day, adding upon an ever-expanding archive of unique stories and settings more than any one person could ever fully experience. But people never realize the wealth of options because D&D has a knack of isolating the player base to one system, their system. 5th edition in particular is thorough and complex, so much so that it takes months of play to fully understand. Yet many new players pick up D&D first, simply for the fact that it has the most players, and mistakenly believe that every tabletop RPG requires the same time and effort to learn, thus discouraging them from quote-unquote starting all over again with a new system. For better or worse, 5e is just barely flexible enough to accommodate stories beyond medieval fantasy, so that small jump to all other games is never tried or tested. The truth is that many games take no time at all to learn, and many systems are simple enough that learning one game makes dozens more easier to understand. The Powered by the Apocalypse system is the poster child of this philosophy. Learning its core foundational rules unlocks hundreds of other games built upon the same framework. The first PBTA game I learned was Masks, and my eyes were opened to the buffet of new stories and fresh approaches to storytelling I suddenly had access to. Which leads me to truth number 2. There are many ways to play. For many outside the hobby, and even to many inside, the mascots of tabletop RPGs are these little guys. Multi-sided dice emblematic of unpredictable story weaving. D&D players enjoy the reliable randomness of the 20-sided die and its utility in attack rolls, skill checks, and saving throws alike. But other games explore the potential of other tools for RNG. A prime example, and my recent favorite, is a deck of cards. For example, we all know the contents of a deck and can roughly estimate our odds of pulling what we want. But how does that change when cards are removed, or summed up together, or split into uniquely crafted piles? What if the suit changes the meaning of the number pulled? What if a face card means an entirely unique result? And what if the placement of the cards adjacent to each other changes the direction of the story? And what if turning them sideways leads to the opposite result? And what if a chain of cards implies a compounding effect that builds upon and twists the story that's been told so far? And I could keep going. This is just one example of how many game designers view tabletop RPGs as not only an art form, but an opportunity for innovation, sculpting the chaos of random chance into frameworks that reinforce a game's tone and narrative trajectory. I've come to love studying how these authors refine the odds of success and failure and discovering the creative ways players can tip those scales. It always feels like a fresh puzzle waiting to be solved. Every game is its own unique challenge, daring the player to figure out what makes them tick. Firelights by Fari RPGs and Lost Below the Earth by Michael Whelan are my favorite recent examples of how deck RNG and card placement work together to move a story forward. And those aren't the only tools. There's counters, symbol work, block towers, sometimes no props at all. And don't get me started on tarot cards. That one I think I'll save for another video. But before the final point, I want to thank Barrowbound for sponsoring this episode. Has this ever happened to you? You've brought your party to a sprawling new city, and the first thing they do is check out that one tavern you forgot to prep for. How are you supposed to know they'd enter the city from the other side? Well, Barrowbound's got you covered. Burrowbound is an all-star collab of the tabletop community's best authors, artists, and musicians in an effort to bring to life comprehensive settings for your games. Every locale featured on Burrowbound comes with a full, and I mean full, map of buildings, landmarks, and points of interest, illustrated inside and out for your party to peruse. They've got story hooks, fully fleshed out adventures, lore and history adaptable to any TTRPG of your choice. You can let the professionals paint the broad strokes or the fine details of your next game, and spend your precious time with your friends, focusing on exactly what you find the most fun. Get all of this in one place with one Patreon membership, which supports many creative minds that have been lifting up the tabletop community for years. I can personally vouch for the quality of their content, so I wholeheartedly recommend it to you all as well. The link to check out Burrowbound and a free sample pack of their content is in the description below. Now, back to the video. Finally, truth number 3. You should learn what you like. The 3,000 hours I logged into D&D wasn't a fluke. There are plenty of things I have always loved about the game. I love epic fantasy, I love the quintessential hero's journey, I am obsessed with number crunching and tactical combat and the endless hours of optimization. But there ultimately arrived a day when I began to feel myself slow down. To run less games, to zone out during intense boss fights, it felt like my inspiration for the hobby was waning. And it wasn't until I started reading other games that I realized how many new stories I had yet to tell. Maybe that day hasn't come for you. Maybe D&D is everything you and your table needs for the far future, and I'm glad you found what makes you happy. I reveled in that same pocket for years and don't regret it. But for the sake of my own growth, as a player, as a facilitator of others, and just an earnest fan of the art of storytelling, I am so happy that I get to take the time now to test all these waters and truly learn what I enjoy the most about this hobby. Maybe after the dust settles, I take what's inspired me back to D&D. Maybe I take the talents I've honed in 5e to fill the pages of other worlds. Or maybe I land somewhere in the center of it all and continue to enjoy leaving that next page yet unwritten. So what do you like? You owe it to yourself to find out. Thanks for watching and stay frosty.